Welcome back, Heat Seekers. Hopefully, Week 9 did not destroy your roster, destroy your dreams of championship goodness. But if it did hurt you a little bit, we're here to help. We got your Week 10 waiver wire ads that you need to be looking forward to. And with that, let's get to it. As you can see, I got a different face with me tonight. That way, I got Cody with me. So he's going to be helping me out tonight. We're going to have some fun with this one. We are going to do our tiers like we always do. Mr. Cody, who is in the top, the tier A, tier 1, the guys that you need to target?
So for the top tier guys that you're going to want to target this week, we got running back A.J. Dillon, tight end Logan Thomas, running back J.D. McKissic, wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver Kenny Golladay, and Sterling Shepard.
We got some Giants that are looking healthy. We've got a Logan Thomas that appears to be coming back and ready to roll. How are you feeling about those guys? What in tier 1, is there somebody that you like more than others?
I'm liking Sterling Shepard there. He's a target monster. I'm surprised that he's not on more teams in more platforms and more formats here. 67% on ESPN. I think that's a little bit low. Kenny Golladay coming back from injury. He's a bit of a wild card, but he's definitely somebody that you need to have on a roster somewhere. J.D. McKissic is, again, a target monster. He's been a little more active. The shin injury to Antonio Gibson, so he's definitely another must add. And then A.J. Dillon, they've just shown a propensity that they need to start running the ball more. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers being out this week, he had a pretty decent day. And I think it's every other week that he is basically startable, at least flex worthy. So these are your top targets you're going to want to look to pick up this week.
It's an interesting group of guys. Hunter Renfrow is a bit of a target hog. Logan Thomas is a tight end that I think people have forgotten about because Ricky Seals-Jones has done a pretty serviceable job, a pretty good job in his place when he's been injured. Of the guys that are on this list, they're all fairly safe at this point. A.J. Dillon's gotten involved in the passing game, and he's doing a little bit more in the running game as well. But Logan Thomas is that he could be a high-end tight end 1 when healthy and on the field. So he would be a guy, if I was in need of tight end help, maybe I had a Kels who wasn't performing as well, or a Kittle who's been struggling a little bit. Like, this would be a guy that I would love to target and grab up on my roster just in case I needed some help. He can be a difference maker when he's on the field, as long as he's healthy. It looks like all signs are pointing to him returning very soon. So plan A for me, like all of these guys I'm very comfortable with all these guys. And the way we have it ranked in order is the way that we would go for it. So for those of you viewers at home that are looking at this, we would target AJ, then Logan, then JD, then Hunter. The Giants receivers, obviously, we always want to throw the asterisk, buyer beware, because the injuries have been rampant in that wide receiver core. Looks like everybody's starting to get back healthy, and hopefully that stays that way. Sterling Shepard's a target hog, and Kenny Golladay could be a really nice piece if you need some receiver help here. But we'll see what happens. As always, make sure you guys comment below. Let us know what you think of our tiers. Let us know what you think of the players. Is there somebody that maybe we needed to add? We'd love to have that conversation with y'all. Who's in the second tier in our plan B? If you can't get A.
So for plan B, there's quite a few guys here. Michael Gallup, Christian Kirk, Carson Wentz, Rashod Bateman, Kenyan Drake, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Alex Collins, Jeremy McNichols, Jordan Howard, Darnell Mooney, Tim Patrick, Ty Johnson, Elijah Moore, Devonta Freeman, Brandon Aiyuk.
So this one, obviously, we do have a considerably larger amount of players than plan A, but that's okay, because in this situation, there's plenty of options here and plenty of very serviceable guys. When looking at this list, Cody, how do you feel about these guys?
I don't know if there's anybody here that could realistically be a start every week, set it and forget it type of a guy. I do like Aiyuk coming back this week. He had a touchdown. He looked good. I think most people thought it was only a matter of time before he sort of gets back to where he can be and doing what he can do. And I think that he made a step towards getting to that point this week. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. Kararius Toney, again, another target hog. Like we talked about in the plan A with those New York Giants wide receivers, they're matchup dependent. You're not going to start any of them and feel super duper comfortable about it unless it's Sterling Shepard in a good matchup. But Kadarius Toney is right there. Honestly, I would personally probably put Kadarius Toney above Kenny Golladay at this point. Tim Patrick is a guy that I very much like. I know we've talked about him a lot ad nauseum in our live stream shows. So Tim Patrick's definitely another guy. He had a touchdown pass this week. He should have had 100 yards. He was right there with the catch and got stripped. He should have had 100 yards as well and the touchdown. Alex Collins is another guy. If he does end up being that starting running back in Seattle for the rest of the season, which is possible, it's worth rolling the dice on that just because he can be that guy that start every week. If there is one in here, it's very potential that it is Alex Collins being that guy. And then Devonta Freeman was a guy I talked about in the live stream show as well, a guy that I liked as a bye week replacement, kind of spot starter type of a guy. And I think he's still that. I just think, he could develop into being a flex guy, a flex starter. Yeah, there's a little bit of everything in here, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. So it's going to depend on what you need. Again, if you watch a lot of the live streams, there's a lot of names that I've talked about personally. Carson Wentz being another one of those guys. Christian Kirk has looked like a wide receiver 2. I think pretty much all season, he's basically been a wide receiver 2. He had a big game this week. So that's a guy, again, there's no one in here that I think is a set and forget type of a stud or week winner type of a thing, but there's definitely some talent here that you can spot start. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely, with the amount of injuries we've seen at the running back position, we've talked about that plenty on the shows. Collins, McNichols, Ty Johnson, Devonta, these are all guys that you need to make sure that you've got a piece of on your roster, especially if you've been hit with the injury bug, as most teams probably have by this point at the running back position. Those would be guys that you can start feeling good about because you're seeing they're getting used a bit more. Ty Johnson's a tough situation because Michael Carter's clearly won, but he's getting some passes. He's getting in the run game a little bit. He's going to have boom or bust weeks, so you can't, like you mentioned, you can't set it and forget it with him. Alex Collins is really the only one in this tier of players where I'm comfortable. Him and Carson Wentz are the two guys in this tier where I'm like, listen, if I've got them on my roster, most likely I'm considering them as a starter just because of the way they've been playing and the way that they're used. Wentz has done a really good job. I know he had a really up and down early season with the foot injury and all that, but he's come back and played very well. Played well in San Francisco in just a terrible situation. You bounced back well against Tennessee. Maybe the team didn't get the win like they were hoping, but fantasy-wise, very good, very successful. These are types of guys that I feel good about going forward. And to finish this out, I filled the plan C tier because there's a lot of names on here. We have a lot of guys that you could target because of their ownership levels on the major platforms, Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper. You're seeing some guys that we have here in the C tier that their ownership isn't so high that you can't go and target them. Falcons receivers, Zaccheaus and Gage are both getting involved. Gage is getting a bunch of targets and a bunch of catches here as of late. Now that he's back and healthy, Zaccheaus getting a little bit more involved. DPJ is getting a little bit more involved. We know Odell's going to be put on waivers here come Monday. Is there anybody in the C tier that you feel good about making sure is on your roster because of what you see them doing moving forward, Cody?
Not really that I would feel super comfortable, flexing or starting at all. There's a couple tight ends in here that for the tight end position, you only need 8 to 10 points, and that's a startable week for a tight end. That has Evan Engram and Jared Cook in that range, in my opinion. I had Evan Engram, and I think the plan B is where I voted him to be. So I think that he's definitely a guy that you can look towards because he's gotten over 10 points, I think, in 3 straight weeks. So that's something that you can definitely bank on, in my opinion. Sony Michel is a guy that I say it all the time, pick up Sunday morning. If you just need to fill a roster spot where you have a guy go on the IR, just in case, if anything ever happens to Darrell Henderson, then Sony Michel is absolutely going to be that guy. And it's a way to stay ahead of the curve with some of these potential injuries. Samaje Perine's another guy who's not on this list, but he's another one of those guys that you can pick up. Jamaal Williams as well. Boston Scott even you could throw in there. Nyheim HIines gets some flex-worthy starts on his own, even with Jonathan Taylor still in the lineup. So there's definitely some value you can find here. Bryan Edwards is a big-time unknown right this second. Obviously, he's going to have to eat up some of the targets left off from Henry Ruggs. So I think there's some guys that you can pick off in here, but they're absolutely matchup dependent and then potential injury plug-and-play guys like Rhamondre Stevenson. He had a good week this week as well, but he left with a head injury, so we'll see how he ends up. You see any guys in here that you think are roster-worthy?
I would have said Kenny Gainwell as of, 2 weeks ago. He was one that I was rostering quite a bit. Boston Scott appears to be that at this point. When this is recording, we're in the midst of the Rams-Titans game, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with AP and Jeremy McNichols and how that looks. If AP is getting the lion's share of the carries and getting very involved, he's a guy that you probably need to bump up to your B tier where you're thinking about rostering him. Whoever's getting a heavy workload in Tennessee at the running position is probably going to get you a fair amount of fantasy points, or at least be flexible, which is important. If you need QB help, I'd probably lean Daniel Jones over a Baker Mayfield type just because of Daniel Jones moving around a lot more and getting some rushing and doing some of that. And he's not been bad this year. I mean, he's definitely a serviceable fantasy quarterback in a pinch. Other than that, it is such a matchup dependent group of players here. So be careful. I would ultimately say talk to us in Discord, talk to us on the live streams. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with us.